Now we're going to introduce 3 prize winners this year for the Harold W. McGraw Jr. Prize in Education. And if we can go to the first award winner. So Reshma has won the Pre-K-12 Education Prize with her fabulous work in coding for girls. So Reshma, come on up. Congratulations. The second prize, higher education prize, is Tim Renick from Georgia State University, who's a fantastic genius on rethinking how students can be successful. Tim, congratulations. And lastly, for the first time, the inaugural prize winner in learning sciences, Arthur Graesser. Art, congratulations. So, start with coding for girls.
All right.
So, I think people pretty much know what that is. What I'd like to know is your thinking about why it is that we are so slow to realize that girls and women, when added to the totality of our social design capability, will alter the trajectory of humanity in very, very significant ways, and we don't get it. So enough. So why do you think that is? What's the actual design constraint that requires that, you know, your coding for girls is a new design, a workaround of the existing design. What is it about the existing design that is not working?
Yeah, in some ways I feel like it's going back to the way that it was. The world's very first programmer was a woman,
yeah.
Ada Lovelace.
Mm-hmm.
You walked, in the 1980s, if you walked into any gaming camp in America, it would have been half boys, half girls.
Mm-hmm.
We almost had
happened?
gender parity. Culture, right? You had the birth of the programmer, right, in the 1980s. You know, the white guy who's wearing a hoodie, sitting in a basement somewhere, staring at a computer screen, drinking a Red Bull.
Drinking Mountain Dew, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And little girls, and you saw him in War Games and Revenge of the Nerds, and little girls looked at that image and they said, you know, not only do I not want to be him, I don't even want to be friends with him. So decade after decade after decade, we've basically turned girls off of going into this field. Mm-hmm. And we've done a poor job of describing what computer science is. No. And we're changing that at Girls.
Well, I mentioned to you last night when we were talking that, you know, we've grown engineering at ASU from 8,000 students to 21,000 students and in the last few years. And one of the ways that with thousands and thousands of more women in engineering, because we redesigned what it is and how it's perceived and what they're focused on, starting with the names, the structure, everything. So we think it is about the culture.
Absolutely. I mean, I saw so many diverse faces in that video building incredible things, and we've learned the same thing. We've taught 90,000 girls over the past 6 years in 50 states. To put that into perspective, only 10,000 women graduated in computer science last year. So this is possible. You know, very few times in your life do you get the opportunity to solve a problem in a generation, and we have one. And we and so many other incredible organizations are solving this problem. So I'm hopeful. Like, I'm hopeful that all of those faces, right, can be women and women of color.
Right. So, Tim, you were educated at highly selective universities. You got your PhD at Princeton. You grew up you know, at the top of your game, you know, analytically and philosophically, and you know, you're a philosopher and a scholar of really complex ideas, and now you're devoting your life to, you know, a frontline public urban university in a highly diverse community. So, what is it about the culture of academia that leads you to, in a sense, have to face this social hierarchy in academia where there's the good schools and the not so good schools and the not so good schools, which all appear to be about selectivity? What is it about higher education?
Well, I think one thing I learned at those previous institutions, and it's one thing that was reflected in your comments just a minute ago, is that we know what works in education. Students need individualized attention. They need immediate feedback. They need to be able to interact and experience. And the reality is places like Georgia State, big public universities where 52,000 students, majority minority institution, almost 70% of our students are non-white, typically haven't been resourced in order to deliver that kind of personalized service. So, a personal challenge to me, building upon my background, is how can we deliver to students what they deserve?
That, by the way, goes back to my thing about design. It wasn't resourced because people didn't want to resource it.
Yeah, we've spent a lot of time over the last generation trying to get students college ready. And what we've tried to do at Georgia State, and I know ASU is engaged in the same design process, is say, what does it look like for a college to be student ready? How do we deliver services at scale for reasonable costs? We launched a chatbot 2 years ago so we could give immediate answers to our incoming freshmen. In the first 3 months, we had 200,000 questions answered for the freshman class alone. We're tracking every student every day for 800 different risk factors and reaching out to them en masse when they go off path before they make fatal mistakes that are going to lead to them dropping out. Over the last 5 years, we've had over 200,000 interventions. But we're not a well-resourced institution, and the challenge that a place like Georgia State poses to the whole post-secondary sector is, why not? Why aren't you doing the same?
Resources don't have to mean money. Resources can mean ideas or designs. And so, Art, talk a little bit about, so you're interesting. So you're one of these polymathic types, and so you've been thinking about how to integrate all these things. So the question I have for you is, what is it that we don't know about learning that we really ought to know as we enter into this technological age where ubiquitous access to information is going to be like never before? So what is it about learning, human learning, that we don't generally know relative to our design that you think we ought to think about?
Well, I think one problem has been the big classrooms. I think that was created around the Industrial Revolution to disseminate shallow knowledge. And so you really should have classrooms to inspire and to expose people to ideas. However, that does not provide deep learning, systems thinking, causal analysis. And deep learning is hard. So every mind is on their own trajectory. You can't do that in a classroom. You can't. You have to have personalized, intelligent tutoring systems so it can kind of go along your own mental trajectory. And so we've got to find ways to go into the knowledge revolution because we're gone beyond the industrial revolution into the knowledge revolution. So we really got to design higher education more towards smaller groups, creating things in an interdisciplinary arena rather than big classrooms. That's fine for entertainment and exposure to shallow knowledge, but that's not deep.
So yes, let's agree with that. So Reshman, so you've been on the front line, bringing about change. You're trying to bring us back to this broader participation of girls and women that we have had in the past that we moved away from because of culture shifts. So what's a couple ideas that you wish people like the people attending this meeting should work on? What's a couple ideas? What should we be doing?
Sure. So one, I think we need to get computer science education to every student in middle school.
So computer science education to every student. So on my chart, I said math and science literacy for everyone, and I'd put computer science under that.
Great.
So they understand how these machines work.
Yeah. Second, you got to track gender and race. So
Track it. So you got to know who's doing it.
You got to know who's doing it. And I think the third thing is we need to emphasize the importance of role models. You cannot be what you cannot see. And so we need to make sure that we're telling these stories of Ada Lovelace and the ENIAC women and the incredible women and people of color that are at the forefront of math and science and technology. And we need to share those stories.
Okay. So Tim, you've got a lot of people out here who are building, investing, designing, making things happen. So you saw my wish list. Got a lot of things on it. I hope people are paying attention to it because there's, money involved also. There's, we need technologies. There's a market for these technologies. Let's make things happen. What do you need that you don't have? What do you wish you had that no one has built yet?
Yeah, well, we're working now increasingly in the financial range. So how do we do the same kind of tracking that we've gotten better and better at across this room in the academic realm with helping students make the right financial decisions, knowing when they're going off path financially, and being able to deliver timely interventions to students so they don't make these mistakes that ultimately lead to them dropping out. We found that some students, before they even set foot on campus, have already made decisions that are going to determine that they're not going to graduate from Georgia State by taking a housing choice that they can't afford, and that basically means they're going to drop out in March of their first year.
So, Art, last question to you, and then we're out of time. So you're the leader of the Institute of Intelligent Systems. And so you're a designer driven by science and scientific understanding. So you're a science-driven designer. What's our biggest error that we need to design around, other than the shallow learning, big classrooms, Michel Foucault constrained, technologically based, failed learning systems? What does all of your insight, all of your experience in intelligent systems tell you that we need to really address?
I think we need to address the value of what we're learning. And that's not often done.
So that the learner can understand the value.
Yeah, they understand the value. We do a lot of just-in-case learning. So they give you information just in case it's important, but why not have some sense of where this learning is going to take you for your future and through your entire life?
Okay.
And I'm glad you showed the Axio, video, because whether it's the military or universities, they're wondering about how to kind of recommend things throughout their life, and value of what they're learning is very important to it.
Well, let's thank the McGraw Prize winners for this year. And let's thank also the McGraw family for keeping this prize, the world's most important prize in education, going forward. So thank you very much.